Oh, hello and welcome, Pam Roy, on International Women's Day. Thank you so much for joining us at Your Second Prime podcast. And the first time we're ever videotaping it, it's a big day. Welcome.
Thank you. It is a big day, and I am the one who is honored and grateful to be here. I love what you're doing. I think it's so important, and I'm so pleased that both of us are here to represent what it looks like to be in your second prime.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you. We had so much time to talk to each other, and then I said, "Oh my gosh, we have to stop because all the good stuff is coming out." So we get to dive in now. So listeners, I have to tell you about this woman, Pam Roy. She's a badass. She's a writer, a filmmaker, an investor, a philanthropist, and she is creating a community-based organization for youth and families on parenting. Her passion is parenting, and through the stories that we'll go through, you'll learn about that. She's also a co-founder of Straight Up Impact, a women-owned production company, and we'll talk about that. And then Be Unbound, which is really cool, and through our storytelling, we'll learn more. And this is when I'm so grateful that you introduced me to the Grandmother Bench Project that you will be doing a film on. And I have to say, I watched the TED Talk you recommended, and I was a puddle. And we'll be sure to put that on social media so other people can see it, and we can really amplify that type of work. And just working with all of the wisdom of Viktor Frankl. And I believe that you have worked with his grandson on a foundation. And so I'm so impressed with what you've done and how you do it. And so thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Actually, none of those things were particular goals of mine at the time. They've just evolved. So I look forward to sharing about how these things came about through just serendipitous events based on trusting my inner wisdom of where I was being pulled.
Right. And that's one of the focuses of Your Second Prime, finding your passion, your purpose, your belief in yourself when the labels fall away. When the labels that define us in so many ways, whether it's wife or mother or employee or daughter, caretaker, giver, and we transition out of the 40s, and now we have this affluence of time and things like that. So we'll dive into that in just a little bit. But one thing that we always do at Your Second Prime is, what did you learn most recently that your future self will thank you for?
I would say learning, because learned would be a stretch. But with so many projects and so many initiatives and so many roles I have as the mother of 3 young adult daughters, as the daughter of a 94-year-old woman, as a sister, a friend, all those labels that you just mentioned, and I'm traveling a lot right now. And that can be very discombobulating for me to keep track of everything that I'm doing and respond to everything. So what I have been trying to learn is to pull it back to just this moment and just what's in my power right now to do, to respond to. And I think as a society, we are so future-focused, so production-oriented, that we lose ourselves in this process of living in this space in the future that is very anxiety-producing because there's too many unknown variables, right? So I've been trying to discipline myself, and I write about this in one of the books. There was Alan Watts wrote the book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, A Message for the Age of Anxiety, in 1951. And in it, he describes how we've become disembodied into the future. We don't live in this moment. And that is where we pull back our power and control. So that's been what I have been trying to practice. Can I say I have learned it? Well, I can say I'm better than I was, but it's an important skill set for me to focus on for my future self as well as today, is to be present wherever I am. Mm-hmm.
Well, I completely agree. And that's actually the same thing I'm learning is that if I have a 9-year-old, so I'm 55 and have a 9-year-old, and that's a little off the beaten path in parenting. And so the sports, and then the your second prime, and then my busy career, I have lost my way with being in the moment and grounding myself in the preciousness of the now is something I'm also working on. So, and I feel like during the pandemic, there was this pause where we all sort of like, ah, you know, we can pause for a second, but then we didn't learn any of those lessons that, oh, maybe you shouldn't overdo. And I feel like we over rotated, we over committed, we over promised, and then we are living in that future self versus living in the moment because it feels compacted in some way. So I love that, and that's actually what I'm also working on and learning, and not learned for sure. And it's fun when you find yourself doing it. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm balancing. I'm listening to myself, and then you get far afield, and then you have to sort of like pull yourself back in, rein it in, remind yourself what matters. So I ended up reaching out to 3 fellow moms today and just saying, do you feel connected? Do you feel connected in our tribe? I'm not feeling connected with our group. Maybe we should all get together. So we set up a mom's night just because I was feeling untethered, and I didn't like that feeling, and I was noticing it, and I thought I can't be the only one feeling that way. So I'm aligned with you, and we'll see a lot of alignment today. When I met you, I was instantly girl crush smitten. I'm like, wow, this lady has it going on. So I would love for you to share with our listeners briefly, and it'll unfold as we go, but who you are and how you got to where you are.
Well, the mini part could be hard because I'm 64 years old. Extremely proud of that, by the way. I always mention my age because life has only gotten better with age for me, and I think there's a lot of opportunity in that. But I started being, of course, I was born in 1959 and just was raised during the years of the 60s and the 70s, and quite a different world than the world that is here today. Good and bad about both, for sure. My parents were first-generation Americans, and so they had their family that was either in Sweden or in Italy. And my dad was the only one who went to college. He was very much, he had 3 daughters. I'm one of 3 girls. I have 3 girls. And really pushed the business, the opportunities of joining the business world and all of that. So that's what I did. I followed that trajectory of, be a good student, go to college, work in the business world, make a lot of money. And I did that and found myself very successful according to society's standards at a young age. I was in my late 20s. I was a partner of a real estate consulting firm, opened their Washington, D.C. office. I had the condo, I had the car, I was traveling all over, had the staff, and suddenly my stomach was not comfortable. I was always upset when I ate anything. I began to be fearful of flying, and my job required I be on planes 60%
super
of my...
anxious.
Super anxious, very much intellectual in my head quite a bit about handling everything. And it just literally slowed me down enough to make me realize that I wasn't aligned with what and who I wanted to be. And so that really brought into focus how much I wanted to be a mother. And that although this business stuff was fine, it wasn't who I was. I really felt connected to children. I volunteered, whenever I could at a DC public school, at a homeless children's shelter. And so I knew I couldn't do what I was doing. And I literally quit my job without a job, with a mortgage, with a car payment, and with 3 months' notice. So it wasn't like I irresponsibly said, I'm going to leave this job. I mean, I had a staff, but I replaced myself. The guy actually stayed 30 years. And it was now what? I didn't know what the next path was. So I began reaching out to community and talking to them about how I take my skills but get my life back. How do I earn a living but still create the space to go out there and date and do the things I want. So anyway, I ultimately ended up meeting someone, got married at 35, and had my 3 daughters by the time I was 41. So I am in your club, and there are many pros and cons about being an older parent. For me, there was a lot of pros in perspective that I could look at things a little bit different. And so when I was growing up, school was not the center of our lives. Based on my experience, I knew how important community and relationships and really being, just like you're saying, you reached out to your tribe to say, hey, I'm feeling disconnected. In our mechanistic society, we have become disconnected from ourselves, each other, the natural world, things that really matter. We go to work and we watch life on TV. We don't live life. And so here I have my young girls. I'm so excited to be a mom. I chose to stay home as a mom. And all of a sudden, all these demands are being placed on my family. Do this packet, do this homework, do this, do that. And I was overwhelmed with all of it, thinking, what are they doing? Grandma's birthday is on a Wednesday night. We're going to Grandma's birthday. And even though they had a test the next day, what are we valuing? And so I began approaching raising my children in a different way, very countercultural in terms of not following that trajectory. And that led me to ultimately, my children went to an alternative school, and then they could pick any high school they wanted. They picked a very intense high school. I began seeing in my community and in the school just the stress and the distress that was happening. And that's when I discovered Viktor Frankl and had read Man's Search for Meaning, his international best-selling book. And he talks so much about industrialization. A lot of his other works that I read particularly address that, about what happens when we become the means to an end. We have a society that's created in a factory model. We're now batched and sorted and put on conveyor belts and, very mechanized. And humans are relational. Systems are transactional. And so this big disconnect caused a lot of distress. So anyway, I ended up being really profoundly impacted by that. And he would say, when we have that existential vacuum, when we can't be who we are, it will get discharged in aggression to ourselves or others, cutting, cyberbullying, bullying, addiction. We just numb ourselves. And this could be Netflix. This could be like sitting there and just zoning out because we can't handle anything. And depression, really just our bodies telling us this is not aligned. This is not aligned. So I began seeing that. As my oldest daughter set off to college, my younger 2 were in high school because they were very close in age. And I ended up, coincidentally, going to get my master's degree in school counseling at an East Coast university, and really saw what was happening, the disconnect between what was being taught and what was happening. I'm a businesswoman. I do investments. I operate in the real world and all the things that are changing, but it wasn't changing. And that checking the box approach really wasn't what was really benefiting many people, in my opinion. So I finished the coursework, was working in a public high school, and ended up not continuing on to an internship because it would have required me to drive 2.5 hours every day, or 2 days a week rather, to LA. That was the only place they could find for me to do my internship. And I had 2 kids in high school, and that wasn't an option. So anyway, a friend suggested writing a blog about my experiences and my perspective. And that's when I first had to step out very vulnerably. Whoa, that was scary, about putting these weird thoughts out into the world, and ultimately began to get feedback and some validation that, wow, I was feeling that too. So that gives me an interesting perspective. Through the blog, one of my blog readers was friends with Viktor Frankl's grandson.
I mean, this is amazing.
Yes. I mean, it just gets, so here I am on this path of just not knowing, just allowing life to unfold, because I honestly was not I was really just responding to what was coming in. And he, in turn, introduced me to Kate Cohen and Marisa Polvino, who own Straight Up Films. And they're a very big Hollywood, only woman-owned, or not only, one of the few women-owned production companies, and their creative director, Katie Menke. And we sat in a room talking about our concerns about young people and what might be happening to them. And Viktor Frankl's quote, "An abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior." So while we're all focusing on the reactions and focusing on the individual child or the individual person, we're not looking at the context of the way we're living our lives. And so we began doing a series of short films. That led to them saying, we only want to do these kinds of films. We have the rights to Man's Search for Meaning. We're going to be doing the feature film. Would you like to start a film company? I'm like, hell no. I don't even like Hollywood. I don't let my kids watch films. I don't watch films. I don't watch TV. And they were so my people that we're like, let's do this together. Let's put the stuff out there that we want to see, that we want our children to see, that we want to raise awareness of certain things that are happening, and then also really just highlight how we are all in this same place. I mean, I think so many of us feel like it's only me. I'm the only one not able to keep up. And I think especially women, the mechanistic society, we're the nurturers. We're by innate biology, we tend to nurture, and here we're trying to keep up in this mechanistic world that really affects us a lot. It drains us a lot.